All right, welcome back, people, to another episode of Blerd State of Mind. It is the first of the year,
Yes.
2020.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, people. As you know me, Seth. This is my first guest on the podcast. Also,
Hi.
first guest for the new year is my friend Taylor.
Yes, my name is Taylor Curtis, and I heard y'all talking about me on the first episode.
Just a
so
little bit.
I heard that I might be on here, so I'm glad to be here and glad to be a part of this.
All right. Now, as we kind of had introduced her before, just as far as bringing guests onto the show and everything like that. So now here we are. You get to see somebody with, like I said, a different background, different take on different things. So why don't you give us a little bit of your background, Taylor, as far as growing up, your education, where you come from, what you're currently doing.
Okay. Well, I'm born and raised in Dayton, Ohio. Gym City, that's where I live, that's where I love, that's where I impact, that's where my community is. As I was a child, I was homeschooled, so that's something that we have in common. We all went through some homeschooling at some point in time. I did a majority of my academic career. I was homeschooled, and I learned how to read really early, so I started first grade when I was 4 and ended up graduating from high school when I was 16.
Okay.
Before I graduated from high school, I started taking college classes at Sinclair Community College. I was 13 when I started taking college classes, and now that's something that is very popular. Now they're having programs where you can, from 7th to 12th grade, start taking college classes, and the state pays for it. So it's something called College Credit Plus that's out there now.
Okay.
Back when I was a kid, it didn't exist, but now it's an opportunity that is granting a lot more young people the ability to start their education and their academic career a lot earlier. So I graduated from high school with college credit. I ended up going to Sinclair Community College as my associate's degree. While I was there, I worked there as like a student ambassador, giving tours of the college, and I got to meet a lot of people that worked at the college and heard about a lot of future opportunities at the college that I was like, nope, never. I'm not coming back here. Good luck with that. See y'all later. I'm out of here, because I graduated and went to the Ohio State University. So I got my associate's degree at 18, went to the Ohio State University, and enjoyed my last 2 years of my bachelor's degree. It was a great experience. Go Bucks, even though we lost. It's okay.
Listen,
It hurt my heart.
That was traumatizing.
They cheated.
Who cheated?
The refs cheated.
Listen, we messed up.
Listen, we did mess up, but I read an article like yesterday where some very high officials said this was a ridiculous call. Like, there's no way that this should have went, and that there was definitely some issues there. So I don't care what y'all say. Go Bucks.
Hey, listen,
anyway.
I'm a Bucks fan, but we all knew Clemson was going to whoop us.
No.
We all knew.
I always keep the faith. But I enjoyed being at, OSU. It was a great experience. There I got to work on building my music career a little bit. Even though my studies was in psychology, I got to participate in the great choir called African American Voices, AAV, and they took us to different states and got to have some exposure and some experience.
I know that.
Yeah, it was great. We also had some really awesome shows on campus that I got to participate in and kind of get my name out there. And then I landed a show at a lounge. Back then it was called L&L Lounge, I think, at Lounge 61 or 62. And it was a great experience to just start working with live bands and start singing with live music behind me or playing myself. I played the piano. So that was really where I started getting some experience in that, outside of, church, because I always grew up singing in the church and singing in music competitions related to church and things like that. So graduated from OSU, got my bachelor's degree at 20, and ended up talking to one of those connects that I mentioned at Sinclair, who said, hey, there's a great opportunity for people of color to be able to come in, because it's a minority-based program, and we're going to pay for your master's degree and groom you to be our own faculty here at Sinclair. And I was like, I'm sorry, pay for what? You're going to pay for something? Because Sally Mae is no joke,
Right.
and grad school is expensive. So I was able to come back to Dayton and start working at Sinclair as a faculty member in the psychology department.
Okay.
And so the contract was through Grow Our Own, which is like super rare. You can't ask Siri about it. It's not on Google. You're not going to find it anywhere. You have to come to me. Like literally, it's a grassroots type of thing. We spread it by word of mouth. So the program is you come in with your bachelor's degree as a minority person. Your bachelor's degree is in the field that you want to teach in. You go through a series of interviews to make sure that the department and the rest of the college is willing to bring you in. And then you commit to teaching. And while you're teaching a small load, you're full-time in your grad school program working on your master's. And they give you 3 years to finish your master's. And then after that, you commit to 3 years with Sinclair as faculty.
Okay.
And so it's really awesome because it's a tenure track. And tenure means that you're holding this position like permanently. And unless you royally mess up, you're going to be able to keep your job. It's a job security type of thing that's offered at colleges and universities and other institutions of higher education. And other institutions and corporations as well hold tenure and have certain qualifications to get that, and then certain benefits to being that as well. But with college specifically, it is very difficult to get into a tenure track position just because tenure track means you're full-time,
Right.
and a lot of colleges are able to hire a lot of part-time people who have different availability to teach different class times, and sometimes it's more flexible with part-time availability, so the college may not always have the budget or the desire to hold as many tenure track positions and full-time positions. And so for our college in particular, we love our tenure track positions, but there are times where someone might retire or somebody might leave, and those positions will be closed and no longer open again.
Okay.
So it is a competition, so it means that you have to like compete against several people who also want to be tenured, and there are only a certain number of spots available. And that competition consists of writing this huge paper. It's like almost like a 10-page paper.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, it's like a 10-page paper. And the paper is about what you've done at the college since day one. And so you're literally going through your scholarship, your professional development, your teaching and learning facilitation, your assessment, building curriculum, engaging in community activities or campus activities, working with students, mentoring students, dealing with student clubs and events, being on college-wide committees, and doing a whole lot of different things. Like, being a professor is not teaching and grading at all. Like, I mean, you do, but it's way, way more than that. And they don't write that in the contract. Like, you better read the handbook to find out. So it was a great opportunity. I thought, the possibility of getting tenured or even just having a long-term position would be awesome as someone who's fresh out of college, somebody who's looking for a career. This would be a career builder. It would get me deeper into the subject matter of psychology. It would pay for grad school, and it would also give me the opportunity to network among other psychologists.
Okay.
So this was a position that I was like, absolutely yes, no questions asked. You don't get too many opportunities like offered to you without you looking for them that often. So the fact that I even made the connection as a student with someone who remembered me years later enough to offer me this opportunity and tell me to reach out and submit my application, I think that's awesome, and something that I encourage people to do. Like, no matter where you are in life, like, make connections.
Okay.
Always make connections. Talk to that person. Have your elevator speech ready. Like, that 1 minute that you have in front of somebody is the opportunity to make an impact, and that one impact within that 1 minute, like, can make you or break you in certain situations, and you don't even know. And you never know who you're talking to,
Right.
and you never know the connections that they have or the opportunities that they're willing to give you. And so always presenting yourself as the best version of you that you can be, and being prepared to tell somebody, this is who I am, this is what I'm passionate about, and these are my goals in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
And making an impact and making a connection in a short amount of time is like life-changing. And for me, that connection meant a lot. I mean, I couldn't even imagine finding out or seeking out an opportunity like this, or even considering the idea of teaching. It was never even in my thought process. So to have a connection bring that opportunity about is like really important. And that's like my number one thing for 2020 is make great connections. Connect yourself the right way with the right people. Align yourself. You know, I believe in God. I want to be connected to God and align with God, because if I am, then that's gonna, you know, everything's gonna fall into place. I want to connect with the right people who are gonna be pushing themselves as far as their careers and their goals are, and those are the people I want to align with, because if you're working on your goal and I'm working on my goal, then we can push each other. But if you're not doing anything,
Right.
then you're most likely not going to be pushing me forward. You might be holding me back. So connecting and aligning with the right people. But so started teaching, finished my master's degree from the Chicago School of Professional Psychology.
Okay.
I did an online blended program because I was teaching here in Dayton, so I was also taking classes that were either a virtual classroom or like Skype almost for a classroom. Also working with people internationally on different projects, and finding the technology and the effort to work globally with people on the same project and put all our voices and our faces on it, you know, and that kind of thing. It was an awesome experience. So I got my master's there.
You got your master's at what age?
I was 22 when I got my master's.
22 with a master's.
Yeah, 22 with a master's. So I graduated, and I thought that was great. And I bought myself a house.
Right. No, I remember you bugging out about that house too.
I did. It was crazy. You know, it was just like, who would have thought, you know, you make goals and stuff and you say like, by the time I'm 25, I want to be debt free and own a house, and you know, like you make that stuff and you say it, but you don't believe it. Right. 9 times out of 10, you.
Oh, who don't believe it? You don't.
Well, I didn't believe it. I had a limiting belief, you know. In my head, I thought like there's no way that I would be financially stable enough to purchase a house, nor have the credit necessary, nor just be ready for a step like that at that age. Like, and I think too, that's when I realized how much we limit ourselves. Like, you know, it was a suggestion by my mom, and she was like, why don't you just go ahead and, you know, buy your house? And I was like, a house? And I laughed at her like, who's gonna buy a house, sis? Who got the money for that?
Right.
And she was like, I seriously think you could do it. You know, we pay way more for rent than we do for mortgage. And your bills are usually cheaper in a house than they are, you know, in an apartment. And, you know, it's really about the whole building the credit thing and being financially knowledgeable enough to budget and be prepared to make the proper payments on everything and be consistent. And that's it.
Right.
And so I had started building my credit when I was really young. Unbeknownst to me, shout out to my parents, I was going on a vacation at 13, and they didn't want me carrying around a bunch of cash, and I had made some money that year, and I wanted to take it on vacation, and so they got me a credit card.
You're doing that 13 with some money.
Babysitting, daycare, babysitting, tutoring, teaching kids how to read, selling rocks.
Right.
The glittery kind that you get off the sidewalk, like whatever, like anything that I could
Straight
do
trafficker
to make
over
money.
here. Over here, boosting up the price of pixie sticks.
I was trying to make money. I was a hustler as a kid, and my grandfather had a business. He did vending, and he way before that, he like owned clubs, and he owned like the first drive-through in Dayton, and like he had like Polish sausage and popcorn and Philly cheesesteaks and pizza and all kinds of vending jobs that he had or businesses that he had.
What's the name of his drive-thru?
The drive-thru? I don't remember what it was called, but it was on Superior. I think. And that was the first one. But his other businesses were called Hot Daddies. And then like all the vending businesses. And I mean, seriously, if you went to any festival in the city, like you knew that the Philly cheesesteaks from Hot Daddies was
It's
stuff.
gonna be fire.
And then he also had the clubs, like I said, like he had Astro House back in the day, and there's a couple other ones that I can't think of the names of, but he taught me work ethic.
Okay.
And so I learned how to work, and he let me work for him at a snow cone machine and stuff like that at these festivals and stuff. So there were times where I brought in like $300 at 10. Like,
This is crazy. See,
what?
if I knew that, I would have robbed you a long time ago.
Oh, see? But that taught me work ethic, and that taught me that it's smart to be smart about your money. And he always was telling me to be smart about money. Like,
Okay.
always. That was like his daily thing. He was always teaching us something about being smart with your money. So buying a house at 23 was not something I thought that I could do, but when I really laid it all out and thought about it, it was like, wow, this is possible. Look how you thought you would have to wait.
Right.
You know, like society tells us you do. Like,
Right.
oh, don't try to do this till you're this age, or don't try to do this till you're that age. Matter of fact, I thought I would wait till, you know, the relationship I was in at the time would be, you know, in a place where it's like, okay, let's take a next step, you know. But the reality is, you don't have to wait for that stuff. You don't
Just
have
go ahead and
to
do it.
wait on anybody. Do what you want to do. Like, do it for you.
There you go.
Invest in yourself. Why are you waiting to invest in somebody else when you could be investing in yourself, which would be a better investment for somebody else later?
Okay.
So, I don't know. There was a lot of mental shifts that happened when I finished my master's degree and started teaching more. So then I bought this house and decided that I would be here for a little while. And then I decided to go for tenure. And so at 25, I became the youngest black female tenured in the history of the United States of America.
That's all over the country.
The
everywhere.
whole country.
See, because I thought maybe it was just Ohio, but no, it's the whole goddamn country.
So the mayor of Dayton issued that December 1st of 2018 was declared Taylor Curtis Day,
Okay.
which was pretty cool to have a day named after you. Like,
She's got this really bougie certificate that she's shown me. It almost looks like the Declaration of Independence. It looks like it's on like some scroll that they rolled out from back in the day.
yeah, it does. Like, I looked at it and I was like, ooh, this is serious.
Parchment, that's what they call it.
Yeah.
It's also parchment with the quill
Somebody was
feather.
like, you have to frame that and put it up, and I was like, I frame it. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't put it up.
Not yet.
No.
That's right.
I just
Nicholas Clay's gonna come steal it for the next
he
National
might,
Treasure
he
movie.
might. He just might. But I kind of felt like, I don't know, like, I love to brag on other people, and I love to brag about community stuff and things that's happening. I'm just not so great about bragging on myself. So, like,
Well, that's all right. See, that's why you got me, so we can brag on this.
well, thank you. Because I was like, isn't that vain to just, like, put it up? And then I had to think about it, like, well, my granddad did have, like, a full portrait painted of himself on his wall, so.
I'll say with like a leopard print coat or something.
No, it wasn't that deep, but it was just, like, him and then my grandmother also, like, both of them, like, were on the wall. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool.
What was that movie? Was it
Nifty.
White Chicks where Terry Crews was laying on that bearskin rug, like just all oiled up? Just, I feel like everybody deserves one of those in their house. Of themselves, not Terry
Of
Crews.
themselves, not Terry Crews.
If you see Terry Crews on my wall, it's just gonna be weird.
It's weird. It's very weird. His pecs just might start moving at any
Stop
time,
it.
and then you'd be like super creeped out, like return to sender. But yeah, so I became tenured, and like I said, I had to write that big 10-page paper and compete against a whole bunch of other people, and that's a lot of pressure. And then you have to wait like forever to find out. Like, it's like at least a month or 2 or 3.
Oh, yeah, they're gonna make you sweat.
It's a lot of sweat. But it worked out, and I did that. And since then, I've become the Director of African American Studies at Sinclair's, which is interesting. It's the type of program that is a short-term certificate program, so it's only like 5 classes. And I'm very passionate about what the program stands for.
Okay.
You know, to study Black studies or African American studies is to really understand the plight of people that have been taken from one place where their home and their culture is and dropped into a new world with all kinds of restrictions and kind of the odds that you don't expect people to like survive.
Right.
And So to watch that take place and watch the assimilation and the accommodation and adaptation that the people as a group have done, and then also watch how society has treated them and the rules that society has created and the systems that society has created in reference to them, and then learning then the system and how to operate it. So with Black Studies, you're learning about everything from Black economy to Black history to Black psychology, Black sociology, and all of the above.
Okay.
And then there's a class called Survey of Africa, where you're actually now looking at Africa, the huge continent that could fit most other countries in it.
Right. Just stick it right in there.
We
And for some reason, everybody thinks Africa is small, like just because it looks small on the globe.
People have no sense of perception if they look at it
Right.
like that. Like, think about it. Like, it's like looking at a Barbie shoe and be like, oh, look at this Barbie shoe, it's so small. Like, yeah, it's small. Yeah, on a Barbie.
Right, on a Barbie.
Look at the Africa. It's not that small. It doesn't even look small. Y'all talk about it small.
Right.
That's really what it is. Because if you look at the size of it on the map, and then look at the size of the United States and Canada and Mexico, it could all fit along with many other countries throughout the world. So, like, if you look at it that way, you would be like, oh, well, it's not so small. And then also, when we talk about it small, I mean, we talk about it like it's one country.
Right.
Oh, Africa.
Right, when it's really a multitude of nations.
Like, there's hundreds of nations over there. You can't talk about it if it's one place. Like, it's huge. There are different countries. Within each country, there's different cultures, different languages.
Right.
There's different tribes, even. So it's like there's so many levels to it. So looking at that is one class. Another class is looking at African American history. So now looking at from the time we got here, historically the things that have taken place leading up to now. And then African American psychology is what I teach, which I love. It's my favorite class to teach, my favorite class to engage in, because we're looking at the mental state of being taken from one place and dropped in another, and then how these different things that have happened to us impact the way that we view ourselves and our identity,
Okay.
how we view relationships and how we function in relationships, whether it's, you know, between friends or whether it's, you know, romantic partner or family relationships, even looking at, you know, how we operate as a community, and, you know, even looking at what we do in our neighborhoods. Like, we literally look at everything, our thinking, our language. Oh my gosh, that's one of my favorite things to talk about is our language. Like, we speak our own dialect, and we don't even know it.
You're talking about just here in the States, right?
Yeah, within the States.
Okay.
Within the States, we speak our own dialect. It is officially called African American Vernacular English,
Okay.
aka Black English. You probably heard it as Ebonics,
Bonics, yep.
or ghetto, or slang.
Slang, right.
But the reality is that we actually have a system, a linguistic system of how we conjugate verbs, how we align our sentence structure, how we put sentences together to be able to speak the way that we do. And it comes from actual African words, African languages mixed with English. So you see this in a couple of different places where it's represented and recognized a little bit differently, like Jamaica. We know Jamaica speaks patois. What is patois? Patois is African mixed with English. Like, and when I say African, obviously there's many different languages. So we're talking about a culmination of several different languages coming together to be used in a place where English had become kind of the main runner of languages, and how we have used this to kind of blend into the new world that we're in.
Okay.
And so there are people who can listen to someone speak patois and totally not understand what they're saying at all. And that's what makes people think that's a language.
Okay.
But when people hear us speak in Black English, because we're using English words that they're familiar with, but just using it in a way that's unfamiliar, a lot of people assume that it's broken.
Right.
It's not broken. It's very systematic. We're never taught the system We were just taught how to speak it. You know, when you grew up, you were taught English because somebody was talking to you,
Right.
not because you sat in an English class with a grammar book.
No.
You learned that after the fact, how to work the system. You learned that after you actually learned how to speak the language.
Yeah.
Well, in our case, it's the same way. We learned how to speak Black English because that's what's been talked around us. That's what's in our community. That's what's spoken in our homes. That's what's around us in our extended family. And that is how we learn the language. But we never sat down with a book to learn the system.
Right.
And so I have this great video. I'll send you the link. That kind of breaks down the system. And it's so funny because when I show it in class, everybody's eyes just widen and everybody's like shook, like, what? All this time I got in trouble at school, or all this time I got in trouble at home, or all those times my mom popped me in the mouth for saying ain't.
But see, but I feel like even when you say that though, I feel like you have to look at the state of like who our teachers are,
Mm-hmm.
because I know, for at least for me, the vast majority of who I was taught by was older white women.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that, and then like you said, like even in the home, they were probably the same older white women that were teaching my parents when they were growing up.
Yeah.
Or, you know, that was just how they were, like you said, it's a system. So they're just trained and indoctrinated by that over time.
Yeah. I think what parents particularly fail to recognize is, instead of, you know, attributing your child's language to poor grammar, have you considered where they got it from? They got it from you. They got it from your family. They got it from people around you. And if you continue to ask, where did this come from? Then you get back to the history of it. And then it's like, oh, this is a part of culture we should hold on to, not something that we should shame.
Okay.
And then also I think the important thing to teach is not, this is better, because it's not. Standard American English is not the first version of English.
Right.
If you ask someone else, they'll tell you it's a broken down version of English.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just how people decided to start speaking when they left the land that they were running away from.
There's that too.
You know? So we respect Standard American English,
Right.
as if Old English with Shakespeare didn't exist, with thee, thou.
The King James.
Yes, thou sayest.
Thou'st. Thine.
Broketh. You know, like, we act like that didn't exist. And then also Standard British English, which is totally different.
Oh, I ain't talking that crazy stuff.
It is totally different.
See, I go more for the Scottish. We just slur my words together because I'm a drunken sailor. I'm just kidding.
No, well, I watched a lot of Harry Potter and
That's right, you are.
Chronicles of Narnia, so
You are a Harry Potter baby.
it's fun, love.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, you know, that's a whole nother version of English.
Right.
So where did y'all get what y'all got now? Y'all made it up.
True.
Or y'all blended different aspects of what y'all knew and made it what it is now. Who gets to say that's the good one, that's the right one, that's the correct one? That's the question we should ask.
Well, I feel like it's the widely accepted stuff because, like you said, the English might have changed and transformed over time, but I don't even feel like our English is even English. I call it American. That's what it is. It's American. We speak America.
Okay.
And all my little hillbilly people out there, I'll say I love y'all, but you know we speak our own version of whatever it is.
And that's true. We do. And people may say, oh, well, that's a different dialect. And it might be.
Yeah.
It might be. People who are Southern speak a different dialect.
I know, and I love it.
It's awesome. And depending upon where you are in the South determines which dialect of Southern you're going to get. Louisiana, Texas, and Atlanta are 3 different places.
Yeah.
You know, with 3 different sounds that you're going to get, and 3 different ways that they say things, and 3 different, you know, ways that they use their own generation or generativity of words. You know, in the South, a Coke is a Coke.
Right.
It's also a Sprite.
It's also Sprite.
Or a Mountain Dew. It's Coke. You call it Coke.
Right.
You know, here we say pop.
Pop.
Somewhere they say soda, and somewhere else they say soda pop. And somewhere else they say fizzy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there's so many different things that you can add into that. So, like, when I look at what parents should be teaching their kids is how to code switch.
Okay, and explain code switching.
For code switching, that means you're going to start speaking in a different way that is translated best to this particular audience. Meaning, if I'm around my parents, I'm going to speak one way. But if I'm around my homies, I'm going to speak something totally different.
Something totally different.
And then if I'm around my church family, it might be something different than that.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Because I definitely am not talking to nobody from my church the way that I'm talking to you or my mother.
You know, but it's different because you just have different experiences. Same way, if I speak black English on a regular basis, which I do, and I ain't ashamed because that's my language,
Yes,
and I'm
ain't.
cool.
She
And
ain't.
I'm cool with it.
Ain't.
Cool with it. With it. Cool with it. That's okay. However, in an interview, I'll probably speak American Standard English because they're going to understand me much better if I speak American Standard English. There will not be a lot of confusion and trouble translating and misunderstandings and
Communication.
Yeah, that.
Miscommunication.
Right? Miscommunications. If I speak the language that they can understand better.
Right.
And it's not saying that my language is wrong. It's not saying that my language is unaccepted. It's just saying that I know you can understand me better this way. Also, for those of us who get tired of questions that, you know, we find to be simple questions, but to someone else is pure curiosity, you know, certain things are just not meant for them. You know, if I don't want to be asked a bunch of questions, I'm not going to use phrases and words that I know you don't understand.
Right. But even on the part of that, though, because something I know that I personally encounter, it's like if you turn on, like you said, the way that you speak to certain people, like in a professional manner or whatever, they feel like you're talking like white people, you're using your white voice.
Oh, yeah. I hear that all the time. I used to be called that when I was a kid. Like, you're so proper. You're speaking white. Like, what in the world is speaking white?
Right.
First of all, what is white? Explain that. Last time I checked, it was a color. If you mean white European, meaning Europeans who came here to America, or Europeans in general, then what you're really saying is that you created a category that doesn't really exist. There is no category of that. You're either Irish or you're Scottish or you're English or whatever.
Right.
However, because a lot of people who came to the United States chose to come here because they were running from something else, or they wanted to start a new world or a new life.
All right, the land of milk and honey.
Yeah.
Opportunity.
They left behind a lot of their culture purposely.
Right.
And then a lot of people chose not to pass down their culture purposely. So now you got a category of people that we call white that don't know who they are, don't know where they come from, don't know what their ethnicity is, don't know their background, don't know their history.
Okay.
We got the same thing with black.
Yeah.
Because now we have people who were forced into a new land through slavery, who again don't know their history because they weren't allowed to know their history because the records were destroyed and people were separated and people were kept from people who were like them and people who spoke the same language were separated and all this other stuff. So now you got people who don't know where they come from, don't know their history, and don't know anything. And so now we just made up a category and called it black. And so now we have these two groups of people who don't know crap about who they are, where they come from, and then we've attributed things like speaking white because it's the proper standard set for that language that's here.
Right. And that was actually something I wanted to kind of circle back to, because I know, like, with your particular studies, and I know over the past several years with the way that, like, this DNA and, like, historical, like, tracking has been going on with, like, what's it, 23andMe and all that stuff. Like, what do you think about that stuff? The fact that, like, there is this huge wave of people trying to track their lineage or where they come from, and I guess how that influences, like, their identity, or how they want to start identifying themselves in this time, in this age now where that seems so important.
Well, I think it's important. I think it's great that people want to seek the knowledge, because if you don't understand your background and what your ancestors have been through and how they've been impacted and how those impacts have now fallen to you, whether directly or indirectly, if you don't understand those things, then you're not really going to have a strong sense of self, because there's still going to be parts that are missing. You're still not putting the pieces together. You still don't see the whole picture. It's like trying to put together a 1,000-piece puzzle and all you got is 200 pieces. Like,
right.
You're not going to have the whole picture. There's going to be a lot of things that are missing. And that goes in many different directions, like so many different directions. For example, you could take your biology, your actual physical makeup. Like, your ancestors have different genes that impact you now.
Okay.
If you don't know your family history and you go to the doctor, right, they're going to ask you. But if you don't know your family history, there's a lot of information that they can't get about you,
right.
and that they're going to be searching for. If you don't know your blood type, how are you going to get a blood transfusion?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or, if you need a kidney, you know what I mean? Like, knowing your makeup is important, biology-wise. So knowing your family makeup and your family history is important as well. If you know that certain things run in your family, there are certain things you might strive harder to avoid. If you know that there are certain things that afflict your family, you might be doing more preventative care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you don't know your biology, then how would you know what to do to take care of yourself physically? Same thing with everything else. If you don't know where your history is when it comes to anything else, then how are you really going to develop you as a person in this culture, especially with people on the outside looking at you and labeling you as one thing,
right,
that has no real definition?
Oh, I get it.
So I feel like it's really important that people are going out and seeking that kind of knowledge. My question is, how legit is the knowledge that's being received? That's always my question. I'm always...
The authenticity of the information.
Yeah, I always wonder, which companies out there are really doing their due diligence to do the research, and how much research they can find that gives you concrete results.
Right.
I don't necessarily want to pay $200 for a test that's going to tell me you're 8% South African and 9% West African and 10% Sub-Saharan African. That's not going to help me figure out nothing.
Right.
Why? Because how many groups of people are in South Africa or West Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa? How many tribes? How many cultures?
Right.
If I want to know more about my culture, that might be a start, but it's not going to be the finishing thing.
Okay.
The best thing I feel like I can do is educate myself further, not just about what's in my DNA, but about what these groups of people went through.
Okay.
And looking at all of these groups of people. Okay, what is the culture here? What is the food? How did they live? What kind of jobs did they have? What kind of language did they speak? What were their specialties? What was the music like? What was the storytelling? What were the stories that we need to communicate and pass down from generation to generation about this group of people? Like, I want to know that kind of information. What were the traditions? What was family life like? I want to know that, because that can help me then figure out what we need to be doing as a community here. How do we rebuild some of these things? How do we take and pull from our history and then implement it now the way that we should be, the way that usually information had been passed on? If we would have had that knowledge and that information passed on properly, what would that look like now? What would our people look like now? What would our community look like now? And that's for all cultures.
Right.
Like, how much stronger would you be as a people if you knew where you came from and you knew that you were like me, right? If we all recognized we all started in Africa in the first place, what a shift that would be. That's one of the reasons why I like the DNA test.
Okay.
Because everybody's starting to realize, like, oh, Africa is the birthplace of society. Science and history both agree on those things. So now we can say, like, guess what, buddy? You and us now.
Might just be 8%.
But you still it.
Right. Got that one drop.
But how much, how many things can we overcome when we start finding the commonalities across people groups? Like, when we have so much dissension and so much division because you're light skinned and you're dark skinned and you're this and you're that and you're Middle Eastern, well, you're Afghanistani and you're Iranian. Like, when you know the differences, we tend to harp on the differences.
Right.
And then we tend to find our in group of people that we're alike and we vibe with them, and then the people that are in the out group, we kind of just like
kind of
have
shun.
negative.
It's like
Yeah, we got negative energy towards them. But what if we knew that we were in the same group? How much different would we be?
Okay, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
I'll say, but even aside from that too, now have you done any of those tests, or how far back have you actually traced your lineage?
Good question. So no, I've never done any of those tests specifically. In the back of my head, I have all kinds of conspiracy theories that be like, I don't know if I want you to have my DNA.
Right. You'll be walking around one day and see another you.
You know?
Mess around, get cloned.
I'm just saying, I watch the movies, and if you haven't noticed what happens in the movies since it happened in real life,
Right.
and the Simpsons never lie.
The Simpsons don't lie.
And so far, there's been a lot of movies recently about cloning, and a lot of movies about removing consciousness from one thing and putting it in another. And
Oh, I'm a Terminator geek all day, bro.
Yeah.
Skynet is coming.
Skynet's coming.
AI is about to take over, and
Yes, they want to kill
you're
you.
gonna get replaced.
They're gonna take over. It's happening. They're telling you it's gonna happen.
Right.
Prepare. Be prepared.
It's a
okay?
wrap.
It's a wrap. So, okay. I keep telling people about Apple and Google and whatever.
Right.
Whatever. Don't
Alexa,
listen. Alexa.
gonna turn
Siri.
your house inside out.
You ever seen Smart House? Disney Channel? They told you what was gonna happen. They set the stage. Anyway, I've never done that, but on my mom's side of the family, there's a historian that did a lot of research,
Okay.
and he traced us back to the plantation that our family was on in Kentucky.
Oh wow.
And so I know that they were slaves on the plantation in Kentucky. That's where one side of my family comes from. And then on my dad's side of the family, they are storytellers, so they pass down information through oral tradition. And my great uncle sat down with me and he shared with me that there was a plantation currently where Hollins College is located. It's an all-girls school. Two of my cousins went there, which, I don't know, kind of made me like,
Right.
she's going to go to school on our plantation where we were slaves? I don't know.
Yeah, why not? Channel the
Is it
ancestors.
free?
Is it?
No, but
Why?
it should be. That's how I feel. Like,
Like, I feel like you should be able to present your family
I
doctors
feel
like, listen,
period.
my great-great-great-grandmama came from here.
We tilled this ground.
Let me get that free 99.
Free. I want a free education. We built this for you.
Right.
That's how I feel. But anyway, my cousins didn't feel that way, so they went. But on that plantation, that's where my ancestors on my dad's side were.
Okay.
I know that, the master raped family members to produce the rest of us. I know that the particular master did offer to financially take care of the children that he created. And my ancestor was like, nah, we good.
Right.
We out. And so from there, 3 different groups of Curtises left the plantation. One went kind of further. One stayed local and started a funeral home business.
Okay.
And then one group kind of settled in the area where my grandma lives. And so that is how they came to be. So I know as far as the plantations where we were, on 2 sides. But of course there's many other sides that I don't have information about, and that's another thing, is that we don't consider all the different sides that there are to look at. Not only do I have a mom and a dad, okay, I know my dad's side and I know my mom's side. But
Right.
what about the other sides, and
the
then
other
their
branches,
other sides? There's so
right.
many branches to this. That's why I think it's so good that we seek, knowing where we came from and knowing what's what and who's who and the history of our family, because there's so much that we don't talk about.
Yeah.
And there's so much that we're unaware of.
Right. Some stuff that just gets forgotten.
Yeah. And you never know who you might be related to. And rich parts of history, rich parts of culture. My grandfather was the first black air traffic controller, at least in the region, if not in the country. People that had made history in different ways could be in your family, and you just won't know if y'all don't talk about it.
Exactly.
We don't talk, so there's that. I'm too busy doing this to talk to y'all elders and y'all family and hear the stories and ask questions about the past and learn the things of old. Like, I used to sit up under my grandparents and they sisters and brothers all the time. Other kids go play. I'm about to sit here and listen and be quiet and hear everything, because they got all kinds of stories to tell and all kinds of experiences that we need to know about, because we can learn from them. And we don't have to keep repeating the past.
Yeah.
If we would learn from the past, we really don't have to keep reinventing the wheel and repeating the same things we always experience. But as a group of people, it seems that we go through similar cycles all the time.
Right.
So I encourage, like, really seeking that identity piece, knowing who you are and where you came from, then also learning what your people went through and how the systems of the past still impact us now.
Okay.
Yeah, super important.
And even along with that, I know you're talking about like the things that we want to talk about. I know something that I wanted to touch on, or at least get your opinion on, when it comes to like mental illness in the Black community. I know like at least a lot of people in my family, or even just men I know, are like anti-therapy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I'm not going to go see a shrink or anything like that, or like they don't believe in getting medicated for things.
Yeah.
And I guess it's kind of shifting. I feel like it's shifting a little bit now, where people are a little bit more open to talking about those kinds of things and
Mm-hmm.
getting help. But as somebody with your background, what do you think about that as far as being part of our history? Why are we so against, I guess, like you said, breaking those, I want to say, ancestral chains in a way, or, you know, getting help for some of our mental issues, or even just admitting that we have them, period?
Man, so I think that what you've experienced, what I've experienced, and what most people have experienced is that in the Black community, mental health is like taboo.
Yeah.
We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to do anything about it. It's, you're okay, drink some water.
Try to go have a drink.
Pray. Go to sleep. Go outside. Like, there's all kinds of...
Do everything but.
Anything but handle the issue. I feel like that stems way, way, way back. In Africa, when there were issues with someone's behavior or character, or how they exude their emotion or anything like that, there are a lot of different views about that, from what is the spiritual aspect of this, what's happening spiritually here, what in the terms of energy is happening here. Is it good energy? Is it bad energy? Negative energy? Where is it coming from? Did you do something that is causing this? Are you reaping something that you sow? Is this evil spirit, or is this a good spirit? Is this a part of being sick physically? Is something physically triggering you mentally, or vice versa? Like, there are a lot of thoughts about where some of our issues stem from and where they come from. There were also a lot of different things happening in daily life that prevented some of these issues.
Right.
Your exposure to the elements and being outside and things like that, grounding, things that kept you in a different balance than where we are now in society today. Having certain foods that you're eating on a regular basis from a plant-based diet that is keeping you more healthy physically, which is also contributing mentally, because everything is connected.
Right.
So your mental health, your spiritual health, and your physical health are all interconnected. Your body, mind, and spirit, they work together. If you have that little girl over there and you make her mad, she can cry until she throws up if she wants to.
Yeah.
It's an option.
Not that she does.
Not that she does, but she could.
Right.
Right? She has the ability to take her mental state of anger, frustration, stress, or whatever, and turn it into a physical reaction of
manifest
vomiting.
it.
Same thing with our spirit. They all work together. So if something's wrong in here, then something could be wrong up here, or physically, and it could all work together. And so when you look at what people in Africa traditionally did physically, mentally, and spiritually, you can see there are a lot of things that would prevent some of the issues that we have now.
Okay.
You know, also their activity and their levels of activity, you know, being outside, moving, working, doing things, you know, being active. We didn't have sitting around on TV watching Instagram, watching everybody else's life, pretend to be great. We didn't have comparison to everybody else. They are, Instagram, they pretended.
Right.
9 times out of 10 is fake. Like, you see it, it might be great for that moment, but what else did they go through before this moment that they took this picture and posted it?
Hell.
They're not going to post the problem moments.
Right.
They're not going to post the issues. They're just going to post the good moments. So it's a perceived happiness, but it's not necessarily really happy people. But we compare ourselves to others. We watch what's on TV. We let the media influence us a lot. And there are a lot of influences and a lot of issues that we have now that we didn't have at our hands and available to us in Africa.
Okay.
Then you have to consider that once we got here, we went through one of the most traumatic experiences a group of people could ever experience, and we passed on that trauma.
Okay.
And when you have structuralized, systematic racism in a whole country, every single thing that exists ebbs and flows with this structure of racism. So, medically speaking, there was an apartheid that happened where we were used as test dummies for surgery.
You're talking about like the Tuskegee experiment?
The Tuskegee experiment is a great example. They found individuals who already had syphilis, and then they said, oh, we're going to give you hot meals and free medical care.
Right.
To poor people who had a very low literacy rate, who were not educated, who worked in fields, who never had medical care, and who didn't have always access to hot meals.
Okay.
So, of course, these people are going to say, hot meals, medical care, yes.
Right, sign me up.
And instead of medical care, what they did were run tests to watch these people die from syphilis. The goal of the study was to watch for what happens when you die from syphilis. That's it. They knew about a cure, which was penicillin.
Right. But you ain't gonna get it.
But they did not offer that as an option and refused to give that to people. Instead, they did things like spinal taps, what they would call them back shots, and say, oh, we're going to give you back shots and it's going to help you. But in reality, we're removing spinal fluid so that we can observe how this is killing you. And they would give, small amounts of money and a casket, let you pick out your own casket, say we did the best we could. And in reality, those people ended up giving syphilis to their family members, some of their kids, their wives. They died. Lots of men in the study died. Like, it was a big catastrophe. But that's just one that hit the news.
Right.
Like, all gynecology work, all of that was done on black women with no anesthesia. Practicing surgeries, removal of organs, and, C-sections and other things like that. Trying out new equipment.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, like, there were so many studies where black people were used as the guinea pigs or as test subjects, where we physically harmed these individuals for the sake of science.
Yeah.
Right? And because we're property, or because we're looked at as less than, or because we're inferior, or because we don't have the same humanity, our lives didn't matter. So let them get whatever they got. Let them go through whatever they go through. We were put on display. Sarah Bartman was toured around Europe for her body because she had a voluptuous body that they were not used to seeing. So they toured her naked around Europe and let people fondle her, rape her, grope her, touch all over her as a circus act, because they were so fascinated with her vagina and her booty and her boobs. Like,
now everybody want to look like her.
They created the Victorian cage skirts with the hump in the back.
Yeah, I
to
remember
look
that.
After that, they started doing things to try to emulate what they saw, but you never want to go through the things that we went through in that process. So I feel like there's a very huge distrust for the medical system because of what we've been through and because of how we've been treated. And even if we haven't been told these particular stories, we have heard people in our family say, I ain't going to that doctor.
Right.
I don't need to go to the doctor. I'm fine. such and such lived so many years and they didn't go to the doctor. You know, you hear all of these different things where our families and our community is always rejecting physical health and wellness systems and prevention. Then, of course, medication we know is something that only um, temporarily relieves symptoms. Medication does not cure anything. There's no medical cures. Like the medicine does something to help your body naturally cure itself. It's just an aid, but it temporarily relieves symptoms. Some of us have been, over medicated. Some of us realize that the cost thing, because of the medical economy and because of big pharma and because the economy with money, all of these things have now impacted us. Now it's messing with our money or we can't afford it. So there's a lot of people that are avoidant of medicine in general. So don't even ask about mental health, because now we have to consider that the American Psychological Association did not listen to Dr. Martin Luther King when he emphasized the need to reduce racism within psychology, because Western psychology had been teaching people that blacks are inferior, intelligently inferior, that blacks are not as capable of controlling themselves, just like people have been taught in medical school or have believed in medical school that black people have a different tolerance of pain. So like current studies, like in the past couple of years, surveyed medical students, and they thought that black people have a higher tolerance of pain or don't feel pain the same as other people. There are a lot of black women who die in pregnancy because their doctors did not listen to them. There are lots of experiences. I've had an experience where I've gone to the emergency room and been told that I'm fine when I literally 5 minutes earlier had a asthma attack and a panic attack, and they told me, "You're okay. You sound okay to me."
That's crazy.
Like, not even considering what your patient just told you. So because there are so many issues with racism in that black people separated from the American Psychological Association, created the National Association of Black Psychologists, because they said, how can you understand someone's behavior and mental processes from a white perspective? If you never considered this person's experience or their culture or where they came from or their history, how can you possibly start to understand who they are and how they think and how they behave? Because those things are a product of their history and their culture and their experience. And when you negate the experience and when you make people feel inferior, you treat people as if they aren't as capable, you automatically have instituted a bias against this group of people. So a lot of people didn't want to go to therapy also because they felt like this is biased. Like, you're not going to understand me. The reality is, you don't have to look like me to understand me. You just have to be willing to learn and willing to do the research and willing to listen and willing to have cultural humility to say, I don't know what I don't know, and you know more about you than I do, and I'm willing to learn. So I feel like what people don't realize is therapy is a great opportunity for you to kind of explore your thoughts and your experiences in a safe place with someone who is legally unable to spill your beans and like someone who's professionally trained to help you navigate through your thoughts and your experiences, to help you come to better conclusions and to help you cope. It's not someone who's going to tell you what to do. It's not somebody who's going to tell you what you want to hear. It's a process that you go through, but it's just in a safe space with a guide. And there are plenty of people who are able to do that without that bias. There are plenty of opportunities to do that without spending a lot of money. A lot of people have misconceptions that therapy is extremely expensive. It can be extremely expensive, but usually it's not. Your insurance actually pays for therapy like the doctors. So if you have a copay to go to the doctor, you would have the copay to go to the therapist. There are some therapy places that offer free counseling or free therapy. There are some places that work on a sliding scale and go based off of your income and say, okay, if you didn't make a lot, we're not going to charge you a lot. So there's way more options than what people seem to believe, and I think a big part of that is the media. Again, we see these movies, we read these books, we hear these stories, we watch Instagram again, and your favorite celebrity went to rehab and it cost them thousands of dollars, and now we believe that this is the norm.
Right.
And we reject the idea even more. But I can say that in the media, I'm seeing more and more the idea of therapy being embraced.
Okay.
So I like to see that, because that's kind of like something that we need to do. If we embrace the idea that mental health issues exist, if we embrace the idea that mental disease or mental illness is just like any other disease, and so it's rude to treat people as if they're less than, like, then maybe we would change the way that people approach it. A lot of people out here don't want to be labeled. I don't want to be labeled.
I almost feel like this is a generation for labels. I mean, you got with this whole was it sexual identity thing?
Oh,
you
Lord.
can label yourself
whatever you want,
60
and
something
you can change
different
it.
way.
And you can change it
anytime
you want.
But then there's people that feel like that's a mental illness.
Well, that was something that was thought for a long time that people would put in the mental asylum for that. But now I don't believe it's a mental illness at all. I think there's a lot of, again, lack of knowledge. I think really what it comes down to is a lack of knowledge. I feel that, number one, when we were created with nerves in certain places that, if stimulated in the right way, are going to create physical responses.
Right.
Period. Right? We all know that. But we act like we don't. So if I blindfolded you and told you, I'm going to let somebody sexually arouse you, as long as you consented, because we got to talk about that, consent, right? As long as you consented and we blindfolded you and let somebody sexually stimulate you, your body would react. Now, if you take the blindfold off and you don't like what you see in front of you that was just touching on you, now you're starting to create perceptions about what you like, what you don't like, whether you enjoyed or didn't enjoy. All these things are now something that you start to consider when you put a face to the situation.
Right.
But the physical stimulation in itself does not mean that you like somebody or don't like somebody. It just means that your body is aroused.
Right. It's a biological response.
So I think that some people have biological responses in situations and believe that that means I'm sexually attracted to you or I like you. I think that we do that often. I think that people will have sex with somebody and think, I really like this person after having sex with them just because you were physically aroused.
Right.
Which in reality, you might look back and be like, I'm actually not physically attracted to that person. Or I'm actually don't like them. But in that moment, that physical arousal made me feel like I'm bonding, because now oxytocin has been released, which is the love hormone that people say causes you to emotionally bond.
Right.
And dopamine has been released, which is the neurotransmitter that says, ooh, I like it, do it again, you need more, you need more.
Right.
It's the same thing that makes heroin addictive. So if you're getting the same type of reaction from heroin as you are from a sexual experience or an orgasm, what do you expect, right? You're going to expect that you need that, or you want that, or you like that.
Right.
So I think a lot of people leave out understanding where did you develop your perception of who you are attracted to or who you're not.
Okay.
Because we were not born with attraction to someone.
Right.
You did not come out the womb like, ooh, she fine.
Right.
Ooh, he's sexy. Like, you don't come out like that. So at some point, you start to develop perception of what you think is attractive. Whether that's your favorite character on that movie, or your favorite toy look like this, or someone in your family that you admired look like this, or you heard people say these things about this style of hair or this style of body, or whatever the case may be. Like, those are things that come over time, and we don't typically analyze where that came from.
Right.
I don't think I analyzed it until I was grown, but like maybe a couple years ago. When I was little, my family says that I used to stare at Asian people.
Okay.
They said I used to stare like, and I mean cold hard, like staring at Asian people. And my sister a couple years ago was like, why did you do that? And I'm like, you're asking me to explain 5-year-old me. I don't know.
Right. So I barely remember.
But then I thought about it for a second, like, why did I do that? And I started remembering things. And I remembered that I loved watching Bruce Lee. I thought he was going to be my husband. What made me like that? I don't know. Was it the fact that I liked his acting? Probably not. Was it the fact that I liked his kung fu? Most definitely.
Oh, yeah.
He was my favorite. So,
I mean, look at her in the yellow jumpsuit.
He was fine. Don't get it twisted. Even now, I know
His
that
little bowl cut.
my 5-year-old self knew fine when she seen it, okay? Because he's still fine. But when I look at that, it's like, okay, I liked him as a kung fu martial artist. So what made me say that I was attracted to him? So I reached back further and I realized I used to want to look like Asian people. I wanted the long black hair, I wanted the bangs, I wanted the skin. Why? Because I used to watch figure skating. And Michelle Kwan was my favorite figure skater. And she used to have the prettiest little outfits on the ice. A kid like me wanted tutus and jump around and spin around and land on my feet and all this other stuff. She did Colors of the Wind. I'll never forget that. She did Colors of the Wind one year, which is Pocahontas' song.
Yeah.
And her outfit was like an ice skating version of the Pocahontas outfit.
Okay.
And Pocahontas was the first princess or cartoon that looked the closest to me.
Okay.
My skin tone, having long hair as a kid. She was the closest one because all the rest of them were white.
Right.
And I wasn't allowed to watch Aladdin.
What?
Yeah, I wasn't. My parents were tripping. There's a genie in it. It's sorcery. And we didn't want to watch that.
Oh, you came from one of them Christian families.
Yeah, one of those.
That's right. My mama tried to pull that too. Ish.
I mean, I watched it somewhere else. But,
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
With your rebellious self.
Anyway, but I was not allowed to watch that. So Pocahontas was literally the closest thing to someone who looked like me as the lead character, the princess of the cartoon.
Okay.
And I liked the outdoors and she was outdoorsy. So then seeing someone live on TV figure skating that also kind of looked, light skinned and long hair, whatever,
right.
But in the Pocahontas outfit and this and this and that. And then I loved her as a figure skater. So that influenced me. That was somebody I aspired to be like.
All right.
So it drew me to people who looked like her in that culture. And like unpacking that took me a while. It took me a while to get to that conclusion. But when I think about it, like when I played house, my name was Michelle. When I played Barbies, there was one Barbie named Michelle.
I'm not gonna lie, I always thought it was weird when you changed your Facebook name from what you were to that, which I know you change it all the time anyway.
Yeah. Well, when I started being serious about my music, I wanted to create a stage name because I felt like there were too many Taylor somebodies out there, or I didn't want to be a Taylor somebody. Like I didn't feel like Taylor Curtis is like something that sparkles and lights. I was like, that's kind of like, I don't know, like it's kind of plain. I want a stage name, and someone suggested that I use the name that I had always used for everything else, and said, "Be Michelle, but spell it different."
Okay.
And I did for a while. Of course, when I no longer worked with that person anymore, I didn't want them to have credit, so I changed my name back to my middle name.
Jesus.
But anyway, yeah, so over time I found out, like, when I started having an attraction towards this group of people, that's what it came from. My admiration for a character that looked like me and then a person that embodied that, in my opinion.
Okay.
So now, of course, as I got older, my taste changed. I started having attraction to other people.
Right.
And people who look different and lots of different skin colors and lots of different this and this and that. And I started developing ideas of what I thought was attractive. There's a certain nose that I just felt like was unattractive. Or certain ears that I'd be like, I don't know about that. You know what I mean? Like, we start to piece these things together. So we think we have a type, but the reality is that somebody influenced us at some point in time into what we believe is attractive.
All right.
So if you mix your biological experience with equating that to attraction, which is not, and then you mix thinking that you have a perception and not ever unpacking it to realize it was someone else's perception that's now been imprinted onto you, I feel like there's a lot of people who don't know what they like. They think they know what they like, but they only think they know what they like because they had an experience that they thought means they're attracted, or there are certain qualities that they think that they're attracted to that they've never really unpacked. And if you start unpacking as an individual, you might find that maybe that was never your idea. And maybe you do like something else or somebody else. Not to say that people aren't attracted to the same sex.
Right.
They are. But how did you get there? How did you get to any attraction that you have? I think that's just something that we don't unpack enough.
Well, see, I always felt like that too. Like not just with the whole attraction thing, but like you said, it's like those subtle influences on the mind that, like you said, influence you to either like go for something or even go against something. Mm-hmm. And I feel like even as people that we don't even understand why, because it's so embedded in our subconscious and we just naturally react.
Period. And like when I start asking people like, what are the direct or indirect messages that you learned about whatever, and start talking about different things or different groups of people or whatever the case may be, and what messages did you experience? Direct meaning someone said it to you or in your presence, and indirect meaning you heard it somewhere or you know, got secondhand information somehow. But like when you think about it, like what were the messages that you learned about these different things? I bet you when you unpack those, you'll realize like, I don't know if I agree with that anymore. Like,
right.
Or I don't think that was my idea ever. And I think that that's something that everybody needs to do. Unpack your messages that you've experienced from childhood to now and start considering what was your idea and what's not. And then reformulate your actual ideas based off of what you now know, not based off of, I don't know, what you've heard over the years.
I'm looking on time.
We're good. I mean, I'm cool.
Okay. I know time you get to be at your thing.
I'm fine. Whatever.
Okay. All right. So we unpacked that a little bit. We talked about your upbringing and everything. I guess for me personally, since I'm raising black girls, I guess you grew up in a household with both parents. I didn't. Raised by a single mother. I guess for you, what do you feel, especially... Well, let me backtrack to that a little bit. The generation we grew up in, I mean, we're both relatively 90s babies and stuff. We come from a different time. It's 2020 now. Social climate has changed, all of that. I guess as far as raising a black girl in America now, or even just from experiences in your upbringing with your father and your mother, what would you say was probably some of the most important things that you learned that you still carry with you today that made you successful?
Okay. I learned, number one, was to love yourself. And I think it's so important to teach black girls to love themselves.
Okay.
Because there's a lot out here against us. We have several things working in opposition to us as women. We have a lot of things working against us, and then on top of that, as black, we have a lot of things working against us, and then black women have kind of a category of their own. We're over-sexualized, we're underestimated, we're underprotected, we're underrepresented, and yet we are still one of the more successful groups.
Right.
Like black women in education is like a success story across the board, like nationwide numbers. There are more women with degrees and success as black women than there are black men.
Okay.
There are lots of things that we're doing well, but if we don't know how to love ourselves, it's very easy to limit ourselves, because black women go through colorism. We deal with being light-skinned or dark-skinned. That stems through history because divide and conquer, right? Slavery. We got the house niggas and we got the field niggas, right? if we separate you by skin tone and then put you into different lines of work and then have you oppose each other, we can create friction, and that dissension and that division will keep you from being unified and going against us. And so that's how that's been. And colonization has done that across the world. In Asia, in Africa, Latino communities, skin bleaching is very common and almost the norm, because white people treated lighter skinned people better, usually because they were a product of some type of interracial relationship, or because they just had lighter skin and they got treated better. That showed signs of, stability or success or financial success or marriageability and things of that nature. And so that's become a huge thing. And then even here in the United States, we had the brown paper bag test. You could get into college or universities if you were lighter than the brown paper bag. But if you're darker, then you don't have the same opportunity. Or same with social groups like certain sororities and fraternities and things of that nature way back when. So there's always been this tug of light versus dark that just doesn't respect everybody. And when we say light-skinned people be like, and dark-skinned people be like, and do all of this, and then make these stereotypes, and then put those images in movies, and now the dark-skinned female in the movie acts like this, and the light-skinned female in the movie acts like that. Now we've created a culture.
Right.
And so now we have young girls who are depressed or don't love it because they don't like the way that they look.
Okay.
Girls who are trying to bleach their skin, which skin bleaching comes from chemicals in a cream, not pouring bleach in the water, but they are finding any kind of way to try to eliminate their skin color or to lighten their skin color, which in the opposite, of course, in white communities, tan is considered to be attractive, and so there's tanning, which leads to skin cancer, bleaching, which leads to skin cancer, and just bad ideas all around.
It's like nobody wants to be happy with themselves.
Nobody
Everybody
wants
wants
to
to
be
be somebody
happy.
else.
Nobody wants to be happy. And everybody wants something that they're not,
Right.
And so if you don't have a firm foundation in yourself, then anything can break you. And as a young girl, that might be other girls who tease you because they're jealous.
Okay.
Or other girls who, as a kid, I was light-skinned, I had long, curly hair. I didn't rock a fro. I had, long, curly hair, wavy hair. And I was always told not to let other girls play in my hair because they will cut your hair off. And I've known people to do it. You have to be careful about this and this and that because people will be jealous or out to get you, or because they don't like you, now they want to bully you. And if you're not strong within yourself, and you don't have a solid foundation when it comes to loving yourself, then you're going to fall for that. And if not that, then it's going to be some boy is going to come along and he's going to tell you everything that you want to hear and everything that sounds good, and then he can easily manipulate you. And I see a lot of black women, especially young girls in today's age, that already don't love themselves to the point where their thoughts of the future are, when I get older, I want to be a stripper. Because in their mind, that's the best way to make good money, by objectifying themselves.
Absolutely not.
And I'm like, you're in the 8th grade. Why is your goal in life to be a stripper? Most strippers turn to stripping because they didn't have no other choice. And because they felt like they had to. And it was either strip, be a prostitute, or sell drugs. And this is the most legal of the three. You know what I mean?
Or you're going to be a real beast, do all three.
A lot of people who are in stripping are not happily stripping. They're in a lot of situations where it's a very tough industry and a very tough life and a very rough life. And a lot of them turn to drugs and are drug addicts just to get through it because of how terrible they experience this objectification.
You watched that movie, Hustlers?
Yes, I did.
I just watched it today.
I watched that movie and I was like, thank you. Because I think it's a really good look at the reality of the stripper world and how rough it is, and then how people try to find their way out and typically end up in crime or drugs or both.
Or both.
So I feel like when you have girls who are already planning that kind of lifestyle because it's been glorified in the music videos, and because in their mind that's the best they can do.
Yeah.
That means they don't love themselves. They don't see the future for themselves. And also, I heard the 8th grade girls saying, well, I want my baby daddy to be like, why are you thinking about a baby daddy? You don't want a husband. You don't want a future. You don't want a partnership. You don't want a marriage. You don't want a family. You don't want a 2-parent household. You're already planning to be a single mom with a baby daddy. Like, that's so scary.
Yeah.
That this is coming from kids who are in the 8th grade. And so it's like, you have to instill in these young girls to love themselves and love themselves more than anybody else will. And you have to instill in them how capable they are and how bright their future can be, and how and unlimit the beliefs that society tries to put on them. When I started working my skincare and makeup business with Mary Kay, which I did once upon a time, but not really.
Not the way you're doing it now.
Yeah, I wasn't business minded. I didn't know anything about running a business, and I also didn't have the same type of connections or the same type of training. And so I was very quickly victim to my own thoughts, and very quickly was like,
When you say victim to your own thoughts,
I self-sabotaged. I was like, I don't really want to get rejected, so I don't really want to try to call anybody about doing some things with this business, and so maybe I just won't call. And then that turned into, well, I'm kind of busy right now, and I don't really have time, and I gotta choose between teaching and my teaching career and building my own business, and so I'm gonna stick with the one that's already built. And then I was like, well, I would really like all this stuff, so I'm gonna keep it, and then I'll do this later. And that's kind of how that went. This year, I was seeking women in my life that could pour into me, because although little girls need to love themselves, need to unlimit their beliefs, and need to know that they're capable of anything and that they can choose and that they have options, grown girls need that too. Women, we need that. And for me, in a toxic environment like psychology, which it is a toxic environment, I have students who have life issues, Lifetime movie issues, First 48 issues, I mean all of it. And they want to come to me and pour it all out because we have established a rapport, and they like me, or they feel like they can trust me, or whatever the case may be, through my teaching.
Right.
Which is fine. I am a resource. I will help you get to the right place that you need to go. I will have your back and all that kind of stuff, and you can talk to me. But when you listen to constant negativity being dumped on you, it gets draining.
Yeah.
And then when you're fighting a good fight, running the Underground Railroad on the board of working for equity at a predominantly white institution, that's battlefield. So that's
right.
also toxic. And so I was like, I want something that's going to help me grow, something that's going to empower me, and something that's going to lift me up. But I want it to come from some women around me, because I'm constantly around drama and negativity. I want to be around positive women, and women who want to see each other win and who want to help each other grow. And so I started Mary Kay again because I had a friend invite me to something, and we got connected, and I met this amazing millionaire who's a Mary Kay millionaire.
No shit.
And she wanted to take me under her wing and teach me how to be a millionaire. And I was like, yes, ma'am, let's go. And she's a millionaire. At the time, she was 37.
So can we name this millionaire?
Yeah, her name is Tina France.
Okay.
Tina freaking France. I love her. She is about to be a national director with Mary Kay, with the Diamond National area, which means that she's going to get to retire and make 60% of her highest salary every month for 15 years. Let me say that again.
That's a lot.
She worked a year where she had a lot of rough things happen in her life, and so because it's your own business and being your own business owner, she chose not to face-to-face really work with anybody that year.
Okay.
Took the whole year off. Because of her impact in the years previously, she made $100,000 that year. Let's just say that year that she took off was the highest year that she made. Obviously, it's not, right? She's been making over six figures for 14 years. So let's just say it was $100,000. When she retires after being 5 years in national, tenure for 5 years as a national, she'll get $60,000 a month, every month for 15 years. Now tell me you don't want a retirement plan like that.
I'm just saying, man, that's more than some people's regular salary for an entire year.
Forever. Just a month. That 1 month is more than my salary. 1 month. 60% of her income is for 1 month would be my salary. More than my salary, you know? So meeting her and watching that kind of success at 37 with no degree shocked me, because I have 3 degrees and I've not made 6 figures in a year ever.
That just shows hard work, though.
Hard work and determination and unlimiting yourself.
Yep.
Because society tells you to make that kind of money, you have to be a stripper or a drug dealer, or you have to be a celebrity of some sort, or you have to have some amazing career as a lawyer or a doctor or this and this and that. And they don't tell you that you can build your own career that can be that successful. They don't tell you that you can build that career and another career if you want to, and you can actually choose multiple things. Instead, we're constantly told to be stable instead of being told to be free.
Yep.
We're constantly told to get by instead of being told to live beyond existence. And so if we teach our kids that they can have options, you know, not necessarily the you can be anything you want to be, you know, but more than that, how can you be anything you want to be? Well, by time management, you can do multiple things if you want to. Let's teach you how to properly manage your time. By knowing your worth and knowing your value, you won't accept things that are less than what you're worth. And then maybe you'll put that time and energy into things that really are going to build you and help you grow and be who you want to be. If we teach you that you love yourself, then the first boy that tells you he loves you is not going to get you pregnant, because you know that that's not enough.
But not.
Listen,
Not my house.
Period. I had a talk with my little sister. She just turned 18. God help us all. And in this conversation, she was telling me about this boy. And I'm not comfortable with her talking about boys yet, because it's my little sister, and I'll kill you over my little sister. I kill you. But we were talking about this boy, and she went to homecoming with this boy. And she said, I was dancing with him, and we danced on a slow song, and I just melted in his arms. And I was like, wait a minute.
So first of all, it's supposed to be at an arm's length, okay? You got to give
Here
him that church
and here,
hug.
here and here.
Ass out.
No close. We're the people that's supposed to come around and tap you if you're dancing too close. What happened to that?
Drinking out the punch bowl on the side.
See?
Fraternizing.
These teachers are part of the problem. They're part of the problem. I met one teacher, she said some outlandish stuff. She said she called the kids heifers, and she was bragging about it.
Sound like my mama.
She said she made it on like someone talked about her on CNN, and she was happy to share this story with a college that was considering teaching a class in her classroom. And I was just sitting there like, you're a part of the problem. You're a part of the problem. Be a part of the solution, okay? So I was talking to my little sister, and I said, listen, I understand that you enjoyed dancing with this little boy. And I understand that you melted in his arms, whatever that means. But what I want you to know is you would melt the same way in any guy's arms.
That makes it sound so bad, though.
It does, but I need you to know that he's not that special.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Not just because you melted in his arms, that doesn't make the man go. You know?
Okay.
Any girl who wants to be loved, because in our hearts we all want to be loved. We want to be held. We want to be comforted. We want people to protect us. We want that. Even the hardest of them want to be loved.
Right.
That's something that we innately desire. We have a desire to connect to people. We are people's people. That's how we are. That's why solitary confinement is one of the worst punishments they can give somebody, because being isolated is disruptive to you as a person and to your mentality and everything. People go crazy there.
Yeah.
Because being isolated is not natural for us. We are a people. We are meant to be around other people. We are interdependent. We want to be loved. So I was telling her that that feeling of someone's arms around you is going to feel good, but it's not only dependent on that one person. Any guy who puts his arms around you, as long as y'all are in good standing and not in an argument or something,
right,
it's gonna feel good. So I want you to know that that doesn't mean this is a attribute of him. This is an attribute of your physical experience. This is not him that's making you feel like this, is the experience. Because a lot of times we get that confused. I don't want you to melt in someone's arms and go, I've never felt like this before, because you've never had a slow dance before, and then you go, I must be in love. No, and then
no, cut
it right there. Well, now he wants to kiss me. Like, wait a minute. You know what I mean?
Right.
A good kiss is a good kiss. That person doesn't mean it's a good kiss. Maybe they just got good kissing skills. You just have to understand that you have to separate some of these things out, because the wrong guy could say the right things,
right,
and get certain results,
right,
that are not going to be beneficial to you in the end. Gonorrhea is like uncontrollable now. They don't even have a cure for it. Like, it's lots of people out here struggling.
Super gonorrhea.
And they're not going to tell you. It's like our country is at an all-time high for STDs.
Yeah.
And it's like, why? Because y'all don't talk? Y'all just felt good in the moment, so now you want to do something. Like, hello, you're not. But if you start separating those physical feelings from your emotions and start really getting to know people, maybe you'll find the right person. But I don't want you to think the right person is because it felt good.
Right.
And so, but if you love yourself enough, you won't be so desperate looking for someone else to do it so that you fall for anything. At least in my opinion. I feel like we're all going to make our mistakes in our relationships and explore and try to be with people, and things are going to go right and things are going to go left. But absolutely. I think you can avoid a lot of the heartache and a lot of the mental depression and suicidal ideation and the issues that so many young people develop off of bad relationships if you would just start off loving yourself differently and not looking for that validation somewhere else and not needing that validation somewhere else. It's okay to have it and have affirmation,
right,
but validation is unnecessary, and that's something that our little girls need to know.
And go back to that, and you feel like that probably starts at home first.
Yeah,
with the parents.
Absolutely it does. I think that parents can instill things that can last forever, that remind you of who you are and help you to stay true to who you are. And I think parents can instill things that make you struggle with who you are. I had to go to therapy with my father at some point in time for communication as an adult, because I felt like the communication that I experienced throughout my life was not always positive communication, and I felt like we struggled with being able to talk to each other. There was a lot of arguing and a lot of unnecessary fights, and I felt like our relationship is breaking down and it's wearing down, and we have to fix this. And things that I realized from that is that there are things that I was told by my parents as a child that developed little issues that like grew over time that I still deal with, like when you got a B+ on your paper and the parent goes, is that as good as you can get?
Right,
now you're struggling with, am I good enough? And I'm never good enough, and even my best isn't good enough, right? So like, those types of things, linger and later on manifest in other ways if you continue certain patterns. So what you say and talking to your kids is so important, but be real with them. That's the other thing. Tell the truth to your kids. Please tell the truth. Don't tell people stuff that's not true. It's stupid.
Right.
Sex is bad. That's a lie. Sex feels great. You tell the kid that sex is bad, and then somehow they got a sexual experience in some way or stimulated in some way, and they enjoyed it. Now what does that make you? A liar.
Right. Well, they feel ashamed to even come to you about it.
what if, what if we told kids sex is good in the right conditions, in the wrong conditions it can have some really bad outcomes? That's more along the lines of the truth. They need
I
to
feel
know.
like as a parent, though, then it's weird because then you got to break down what those conditions
Well,
are.
you need to. You know why? Because as soon as that little girl hits her period, and they're doing that at 8.
Going to mama's house now. I'm just
They're
kidding.
like 8 and 9 hitting their periods now because of the hormones and lots of the
And
food,
all the food and stuff.
the
Yeah.
stuff that they're eating and the stuff they're exposed to. Like, our kids are being affected by this. They're getting pregnant at 8 and 9.
First of all, shouldn't no baby be having sex at 8 and 9 anyway?
True, but it's on every television show that the parent is watching when the kid brought their Barbie into the room to play, and they're playing in the corner while you're watching this TV show that's got these sex scenes in it. It's in the music, it's on the radio, they're singing Eat the Booty Like Groceries on the radio, and your 11-year-old is bobbing to it like, yo, dude, come close to me, and don't even know what they're talking about. Trust me, I've had this conversation with a 9-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 21-year-old, and a 19-year-old all in the same room. And we had this conversation, and the kids was like, that's what the song says? This is one of my favorite songs, you ruined it. And I'm like, but you singing it.
Right, that's your jam, right?
So you need to know what you're singing and what you're saying. And then the music videos, and then don't look at social media.
Oh,
There's
that's
porn everywhere.
oh, it's IG all day, bro.
Instagram is nothing but porn.
Shout out to IG. Thank you.
Follow me it. I don't have no porn on there, but it is. It's nothing but porn everywhere. So your kids are overly exposed. Then everything is sexualized. So in TV, the commercial for the daggone razor, she's standing in front of a bush, shaving around the bush. Like, everything is sexualized.
Gotta get that bush.
So if everything is sexualized and your kid is exposed to it, and then your kid hits puberty before you have these conversations,
Okay. I get it.
so you gotta talk about it and you gotta tell the truth, because if you lie, they're gonna call you out for being a liar because one of their little dumb friends is gonna tell them something different, and you gotta know.
I feel like you're getting personal.
I'm serious. That's what my mama used to be like, nah, not one of your little friends. But my little friends used to come to me and tell me all kinds of stuff.
Right.
And they used to teach me all kinds of stuff. And they used to say, oh, if you want to do this, this is how you do it. And oh, you should try it this way. You should try this, and you should try that. All my little friends used to come to me with that information.
Nope.
They taught me Karma Sutra.
Okay.
They did. Because they used to come together and the girls would talk and they'd be like, ooh, have you tried this? You should do this. Here I am, a virgin, listening to all of these different things that my friends are glorifying. It's great.
You about to make me call Elon Musk. I'm about to shoot my baby off into Mars, away from you heathens.
I'm just saying, like, that's what happens. But my mom had already told me these things before my friends got to me.
So
I already knew. So that nothing was like, ooh, I didn't know. What I learned, though, was my mom did not use the same language as my friends.
yeah, she's from a different generation.
Yeah, but you need to know the language. 'Cause if you don't know the language and you don't speak their language, then they could be tricked and manipulated. Because when they hear something explained in different terminology, then they believe it to be just something totally different.
Okay.
Like, I had a young person say to me, well, yeah, I gave somebody head one time, but I've never had sex though, I'm a virgin.
Right, that don't count.
I said, well, head is a term for oral sex. See the sex there? You're not a virgin. And they were shook. Like, their whole foundation just came crashing down.
They say it don't count, right? What's that meme that I saw where girls say, like, after you ain't messed around with the same dude for, was it like 5 years, it's supposed to fall off like your credit?
It does not fall off. Bodies do not disappear.
They don't count.
It does count.
say it don't count.
It does count. It counts. But my thing was, this little girl had been misled by somebody who called a sexual act by a different name. And something that in her framework of mind she would never do, she now did because someone explained it differently.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? That's crap. You can't be out here manipulating people like that. Talk to your kids. Tell them the truth. Tell them the real. Talk to your kids about racial issues. They're going to experience them at some point in their life. The earlier you start talking about these things and helping them to know who they are, the less they can be devalued by someone who doesn't value them because of their skin color. And the more they'll be prepared when the police stop them, or when a situation comes up, or when their white friend does something that they can't do, or when they're in a situation where they have to code switch, or when they're in a situation where they need to know that microaggression or discrimination or racism is happening, and how do I handle that, and what do I do in those situations, and when is it smart to make a move and when is it not? Because Sandra Bland got killed after calling an officer out about pulling her over for failure to signal in a lane change. And when she videotaped him and called him out, he tased her and dragged her out of the car, and the next thing you know, she's in jail, and then next thing you know, she's dead. We have to talk to our kids about that. A 12-year-old boy was shot in Cleveland for playing with a toy gun at the park.
Yeah.
We got to talk about these things. It has to be discussed. People are getting shot at church on Sunday.
Yeah,
They was in Texas shooting at church. People are shooting up Walmart, El Paso. Like, people are getting shot in Walmart for carrying around a Walmart gun. Right here in Beaver Creek. Like, we have to tell our kids and prepare our kids about a lot of different things. And so the more that we are real with them, the more we talk to them about the serious topics, the more that we open those lines of communication early, the more they'll be willing to talk, the more they'll be willing to ask questions, the more they'll be able to bond with you to where they feel comfortable having that conversation. I admire my cousin Tabitha and her son's relationship, because as a teenager, this single mom has the lines of communication open to discuss things about sex, to discuss things about smoking weed, to discuss things about drinking alcohol, dating girls, school, education, work, conflict, to the point where all his little friends, young and older, come to her for advice because they feel like they can talk to her because she's the parent that understands.
Okay.
Like, if we had more parents that understand instead of more parents that we're so scared of that we can't talk to, I think our kids would be in a much better place.
I agree.
Much better place.
With that, I think we're about ready to start wrapping up. Get this little one home. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. This was great.
Now, before we do wrap up, I know that you had mentioned your Mary-Kay business, so I don't know if you wanted to talk about that or where people can reach you.
Absolutely. So my Mary-Kay business is skincare, body care, and makeup. I have skincare for men. I have fragrances for men. I have body care for both men and women. I have skincare for women and people of all types, from oily, dry. You want vegan skincare, which is one of the most natural lines, eco-certified, highest quality in the world. I got you. This is the top #1 cosmetics line in the world. I'm currently about to enter the top 2% of the company. I'm working on director qualifications. Matter of fact, last night I just hit my qualification mark to start working on directorship.
Oh, wow.
So it's a huge thing, huge deal. Matter of fact, the top earner of the entire corporation, her name is Gloria Mayfield Banks, black woman,
Okay.
#1 in the global corporation, makes $100,000 a month. She hit my line on
Christ.
Sunday. Jesus, take me now. Like, I was like, whoa, she really like hit me up. So it's an awesome business. I also have makeup and, like I said, body care. And so you can reach me at www.marykay.com/Taylor Michael. That's TaylorMyKal. The link will be in the bio or in the subscription comments somewhere. You'll find it. Also, I sing in a band called Frequency. We just brought in New Year's last night at Mother Stewart's Brewery in Springfield for the ball drop. It was absolutely amazing. It was a great show. The band is Frequency, FREAKQUENCY. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Freak is Music, music with a Z. We had a really great show last night. It was awesome. We have great shows coming up. We're going to be doing a skating party soon. We're going to be doing Miami Valley Music Fest. We've got a lot of things on the books, so make sure you check us out. We do world music, so everything from funk to hip-hop, jazz, R&B, rock, fusion of different types of music. That's just our thing. And we have original music, and we do some covers as well. So it's a really great place, a great group, a great place to vibe out, rage out, and let all your feelings out. One of my ways of helping with self-care and mental health in the community is to provide music that people can relate to, people that can come together and be brought together and unified as a community with it. It also helps us get our self-care out. And then also with the skincare and the makeup, another good way of self-care. And so just ways of being healthy. And that's what I do.
All right. So you heard it from her first. So yeah, please come on, support.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say find her, like you said, on her links or website, social media, whatever. Or I'll point you in the right direction if I can.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you again for coming
Absolutely.
out, man. All right. That's for another episode, and we'll be back again next week.
Peace.
Peace.